I quit watching porn about a year and a half to 2 years ago, and that was after watching it for over 15 years. I quit playing video games about 4 to 5 years ago after accruing over 10,000 hours of video game time, and those were only the ones that I was able to keep track of. I stopped biting my nails. It's going on 8 years now since I stopped doing that, and it was over 15 years that I had been biting it up until that point. While some of these might seem trivial, especially the one with biting the nails, just consider any habit that you personally have, because my habits might not be difficult for you to moderate or to stop, but consider something that you have that you've wanted to stop doing, but somehow you just keep picking it back up again. And I think you would notice that stopping a habit is not as easy as simply having a reason to stop. For me, these habits and many others that I've started and stopped throughout the course of my life have gotten me to think a lot about what it means to start or stop a habit. What does it take to start or stop a habit? And I've come to the conclusion that there are two main factors that affect whether we are able to quit or start a habit for good. And the first one is the conviction. The second one has to do with the time and patience. Usually we have a reason to stop doing something that we've been doing for a long time, but somehow we end up doing it again. So at first glance, it might seem like having a reason alone is not enough to stop a habit, but consider that reasons come in degrees. They are not all the same. So some reasons are far stronger than others. And I think oftentimes the problem is that the reason that we have to stop doing something is so fickle that it is just unable to consistently keep us away from that habit. It might work for a day or a week, but as time wears on and that reason naturally starts to fade, and it's becoming harder to remind ourselves why did we stop doing that again, and the desire to go back to that habit starts to flare up again, it just gets more and more difficult to maintain that abstinence from a habit or to keep doing one that we just started to do and want to keep going. The problem is not whether we have a reason or not. The problem is how strong is our reason for wanting to start or stop something. I think this often goes unnoticed because in a given moment, the reason that we have that urges us to stop or start something feels like it's good enough. We have that momentary burst of inspiration to stop doing something or to start doing something, and we think that that is going to be long lasting. We think it's going to be durable, but from so many experiences in our lives we come to realize that some reasons just seem to stick more than others when it comes to breaking habits. And I think this highlights the need to be a lot more deliberate in the reasons that we are using to start or stop any given habit. Oftentimes, we just leave those reasons up to our whims. Whenever we feel that burst of inspiration, then we want to make that change, not realizing that that is going to inevitably wear out as it has so many other times in the past. But by being more deliberate about why it is that we want to stop doing something, we are able to find the loopholes in our reasoning. We're able to find possibilities that might arise that might cause us to relapse back into that habit again and try to address them before they happen. Because reasoning is an intellectual game, it's a matter of convincing ourselves that something is good or bad. It's weighing the cost and benefits and ultimately deciding that the cost outweigh the benefits or the benefits outweigh the cost. So by spending more time trying to foresee possible loopholes in our reason, we're able to fortify those reasons and make them that much more durable. The second factor that I think affects our ability to start or stop a habit has to do with the time and patience that we have with ourselves. I think this one just comes down to a lack of faith in ourselves because perhaps we've tried so many other times in the past and failed, and that made us feel like why even bother again? But I think one thing that's worth noticing here is that for any habit that you might have successfully broken in the past, it took multiple attempts, right? It was most likely not an instantaneous thing, regardless of how strong your conviction might have been. So you can't only have a strong conviction, you need to buttress that with that time and patience. If not, you're essentially going to still run into fatigue again from the amount of attempts you've made at starting or stopping the habit. So the key here is the realization that starting or stopping any habit is just as much of a skill building process as the habit itself. So say I want to learn how to play tennis and I want to make a habit out of going to the tennis court every day. Becoming better at tennis is a skill that we're building, but prior to that, what we're building is another skill of trying to maintain that habit. So essentially, forming a habit is in itself a skill that takes repetition. To put it more plainly, if we want to start or stop something and we keep failing at consistency, that should not be a deterrence. It might seem like an either or situation where I'm either stopping the habit or I'm not stopping the habit. And if I don't stop this habit that I want to stop, then, there's something wrong with me or I'm a failure. But by shifting our perspective and noticing or realizing that each time we are starting or stopping something that we want, we are further enriching our conviction, our reasons that are motivating us to do that. So to recap, conviction is something that we should be deliberate about. We should not leave it up to our whims to come up with a reason to stop doing something. We should be very deliberate. We should write it down. We should try to explore different possibilities that might come up that might make that reason more or less weaker and try to enrich it by doing that. Secondly, we should have more patience with ourselves. We should give ourselves that flexibility, that leeway to fail and come back and fail and come back again, knowing that each time that happens, we are getting that much closer to that final goal of maintaining that habit or breaking it if that is the ultimate goal.